Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we are talking about the dangers of attribution modeling.
Right, this one is from a bit of bitterly earned personal experience. And I am bitter about it.
Are you bitter?
I am bitter about it. I'm going to explain why.
Oh, Daniel.
So let's start at the beginning of this story. So Performance Max campaigns is a type of Google ad. And if people aren't familiar, instead of going in and saying, I want this ad in front of these people and give loads of detail and be very precise, instead you say, here's my website. And it finds images, logos, videos, text, and descriptions, mixes them all up, pushes those out, and uses machine learning to understand what heading, with what image, with what text, with what logo works best for a particular audience. It does that across text ads, so the normal Google text ads, display network, so the 3 million websites that are in the display network. It does it across YouTube, the Discover app, Gmail, all those different places. And the idea is that it works out using machine learning what's the right ad for the right person in the right scenario throughout the user journey. Great, all good so far. Average click-through rates across text ads, a good 2.5% wouldn't be a bad click-through rate. Some of these are getting 18%, kind of bonkers click-through rates. They can perform really, really well. Big complaint to Google at a couple of conferences I've been to is marketers saying, we're competing with AIs now. And they say, nope, you're competing with marketers that are using AIs. So if you're not using this stuff, you're at a bit of a competitive disadvantage. Okay. The problem I had with it, first of all, was that you run it, and when you get clicks, it doesn't tell you got a click from the display network, or you got a click from a text ad, or you got a click from YouTube. It just says it came from cross-network. And it's like, they're doing it again. And it's like when Google stopped giving you the whole phrase that people were searching for in Google to find your site. They're now not telling you really where these clicks are coming from.
It's about as useful as the whole none direct in your analytics. Because how can you do more of that? Well, obviously you can invest more in your Performance Max campaigns, but it's like, but I want to be able to attribute the value to what's working. And the answer Google will give is, well, you just need to trust and believe in the AI.
Well, I spoke to Google about this at the HubSpot conference back in September. And they said, well, the reason we don't give you the details, you might then go off and focus all your budget on display advertising or whatever it might be. But actually, you won't have the machine learning to keep testing, and that might change over a period of time. And actually, it's a combination of different channels that's causing it. It's across the user journey, and therefore, you need to keep using the machine learning if you want to get equal results. So, that is a believable thing. But the problem is that you're not really sure where those clicks are coming from. Right, so, okay. So let's park that to one side for a second. Within GA4, you now have attribution modeling under the heading of advertising. Now, that as a starting point for me makes me nervous, because it's like, okay, you're trying to make you attribute value to advertising, and that's what they're selling you.
So just in case anyone doesn't know, what is attribution modeling?
Yeah, so attribution modeling is just kind of going through and saying, okay, maybe I came in from a display ad, then I came back a week later from a Google search, then I came back a week later from another Google search, then I typed the website address in, it was a direct visit, and then I converted. I did the thing I wanted to do. I need to know that all of those steps made up the journey, and then attribute a bit of value to each of those things as well. That's the objective, right? And the idea is we can then say, well, I did those paid search ads. No one purchased anything, but they did click through to the website, and then they visited 3 times afterwards. Right, I can start to untangle the user journey and make sense of the whole thing. Okay, that's great. They've improved the attribution modeling. So now instead of having like a linear model, which is just like every step gets the same value, or time decay when the nearest thing got the most value, and they were all very arbitrary, these models. I mean, I quite like the linear model that just said everything got the same value. But now what they're using is a machine learning based model, and they call it their data-driven model.
And that's the default in GA4.
It is the default now.
Yeah.
You've used this a fair bit. And what's your feeling on it?
I'll be honest, I quite like it.
Yeah, me too.
I do quite like it. But the trick to this, and I'm sure we've mentioned this before, but in case you haven't clocked it, I'll mention it again. My favorite reports in Google Analytics have always been the acquisition reports, because they tell you that where did the traffic come from and which sources converted. And that's gold dust to any marketer. But what I particularly like about GA4 is you've now got the opportunity of using like user acquisition first user,
Yep.
right? And that's quite useful because that tells you upstream what were the channels that caught people in the first instance. And then you've got traffic acquisition broken down on a per session basis, which is much more similar, not
traffic
similar
rather than
ish,
users, right?
To the way the old universal analytics, much more last click. Both of these models, however, are using that smart attribution system that Google have developed, right? So you never get parity between what you used to get in the old analytics and this, but it gives you like two different ends of the funnel really that you look at, and you should be looking at both of them, because actually, if I identify using the user acquisition first user reports, that's able to tell me, well, which parts of my funnel are working at the top of
to get people in the first place.
People in the first place and pull people in, because people don't always come in at the top of your funnel. Sometimes they come right in at the bottom, ready to convert. So look at your revenue or your conversion percentage or numbers from those, but also compare that with the traffic acquisition session reports, which gives you much more of a last click. And I think that gives you quite a nice balanced kind of view of the world. What I would say is that by using both the first session kind of first user reports and the last session reports, what you're able to do is to get a good balanced view without boring the hell out of everybody with different acquisition models, like attribution models, because people just glaze over. When you say, well, it's complex and we need to, and we love this, geek out on it, right? It's lovely. No, it's not cool. Not the way to make friends at a party. I've trodden on that landmine. Don't go there. And it won't win you friends at a senior level either, because they just don't get it. You're speaking another language, right? But they get smart attribution and they'll take on, but it's the AI machine learning, all very good, very sophisticated, all carry on, well done. And it just simplifies things, because you've sort of got one source of truth. Now you might need to do a little bit of education on the difference between like first user reports and session reports, because they are looking at different ends, but most people will get their heads around that if you take the time to understand it yourself. It's quite a simple thing to explain.
What I'm really interested in is the fact that you've now got this data-driven model that's different for every single website. So it's a bit of a black box from that point of view, but it's trying to work out the validity of each of those visits and does it convert. Okay, so far we've got two good things, right? So we've got these nice machine learning-based campaigns that are really optimizing well for me, and then you've got machine-based attribution modeling. Right, this is where it all starts to get interesting. I look at our attribution reports and it says most of your value is coming from cross-network, i.e. it's coming from Performance Max. Now, I might be a little bit suspicious of that, because that's saying all your value's coming from Google, says Google. Okay, but no, I can see they were getting clicks. I could see what was happening to traffic, and I could track it through to they were actually converting.
But just looking at cross networks, it's not really in the name. How did you then decipher that cross network was all Performance Max?
So I had to look in the documentation.
I Googled it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Quite a while ago, but to Google it, it's like, wait, what is this thing?
Well, suddenly we saw it showing up and we didn't know. And you have to go to the default channel groupings. So when you go to GA4, you've got your primary dimension. You've got that main primary dimension. And a dimension is something that tells you something about something. That's how Kieran explained it to me. And basically, the first one you've got is your default channel grouping. And that is organic search, paid search, et cetera, and then you've got this cross network.
And you know why it's called cross network, right?
Because it comes across
different
parts of the network.
No, it's because it annoyed you.
Oh, cross network. Yeah. Maybe cross. I like it. Thank you very much. He's available.
Yeah, he's very influential in Google circles, so they named it. Yeah, this frustration.
So basically, we've got this, and it's telling me this is where your value's coming from. And you look at it and go, yeah, it is. I can see people are clicking on it. They're going through and they're purchasing and so on. So I see suddenly we go from 0 to like 40 to 60% of our value is coming through this stuff. Oh, brilliant. So I must be up 40 to 60% in sales. Nope. I'm not up anything. I'm getting exactly the same sales as I'm getting before. So I'm like, this does not add up. What's going on? Two things to be aware of. Tiny little settings that will change your life. Okay. So the first one is you've got this thing that says automatically create assets. So as well as going through and using the phrases, the descriptions, the images, what it's also going to do is learn from people's visits to your website, look at your top performing pages, top performing keywords. That's the key thing, top performing keywords. And it's going to start generating ads for those pages and those keywords. So suddenly, we've got this page, what is data scraping, right? Huge amounts of traffic. It's number one in Google for data scraping. Probably, I mean, this is beyond the top of our funnel to some extent, because there's a million people, probably even marketers searching for this. We're getting the traffic. Our bounce rate is probably like 95% plus, because people come in, they get what they want, they leave. Some convert, but very, very few. Okay, so this is a pretty broad piece of content. The thing is, Google says you're ranking really well for that. You're getting loads of traffic for that. I'm going to start putting ads on that. So I'm now cannibalizing my own organic visits for a search term that's not going to convert at a very high rate. So that's not great. But what it's also doing is looking at those pages that, for example, things like we're number one for how do different age groups use social media. And it goes, well, lots of people are coming to that page. You're getting loads of traffic. That's converting at quite a good rate, because those are people that want to learn more about things. And therefore, it's kind of coming through and saying, yeah, you should put, and it's putting ads there for us again, text ads. So we're paying for text ads that are cannibalizing. We were getting the traffic anyway. So suddenly, yes, it is driving that traffic, but we were getting that off from organic search. So you've got to be careful. The other piece, and Kieran was pointing this out as well. Tell us about the brand search.
Yeah, so with brand search, one of the things you can do is exclude your brand from your Performance Max campaigns.
Yep.
And
but it's not an easy
not
setting
just your
to come to,
brand. You can exclude any brand actually, which could be quite useful thing. Anything you can do to help like guide the AI can help it stop wasting budget. So the way I've seen this set up to quite good effect with kind of e-commerce pay-per-click campaigns is you can have a whole bunch of Performance Max campaigns. One of the problems our account manager was having was that it made it very difficult to see what the brand was doing, right? So we were able to exclude our brand from all the Performance Max campaigns, but include it on our Performance Max brand campaign. And then you can kind of separate that out from all the others. And that can help quite a bit in terms of attributing, the right thing to, because your brand campaign will always like walk on water. Most of your results will come off the back of that brand campaign. But what you have to ask is, okay, why do people just search for our brand? Like be all the other stuff you've been paid for and investing in for the last kind of 15 years or so has had an attributed effect on that. So it's always best to like separate that out. And that way you get a much purer view of how your campaigns are actually performing. I don't want performance campaign to go, oh, this is quite good. I can run away with success on the brand because that's what gets results. Of course it does. Yeah.
That's exactly the thing.
No doodah, Sherlock. It's kind of it's just kind of how that's going to work.
This is exactly
separating those two out, I think, is absolutely crucial. And then you can see how that campaigns. Also, last thing you want, your different campaigns competing against one another. Because again, that can be a problem. Now, I don't know the extent to which Google's AI sorts that out, but I don't know that it would. Like you set these goals, you set the kind of ROIs that you want to achieve with those campaigns. Of course, they might start competing. Whereas if you've got that brand element in there, strip it out.
I've got evidence of that. So we had two campaigns competing partially for the same thing. The one that was running first had really, really good performance. We launched the second one. It damaged the performance of the other one because the share of clicks had been diluted down because it was going through to the other campaign. So definitely. So the solution to this, as Kieran just kind of touched on to, is testing in isolation. If you go into Google Ads, your text ads, your display ads, your YouTube ads, all those kind of things, they all have elements of AI built into them now. So yes, Performance Max can work, but if you're going to use them, make sure you're excluding your brand, and also make sure you're switching off as an initial test your automatically created assets, because you can do yourself some damage through doing that otherwise. I would also then go through and run a paid search ad campaign on its own. I'd go through and display campaign on its own, do a YouTube campaign on its own, and then look at what performance you're getting from each of those campaigns, and just make sure that you're focusing your budgets on the ones that are better from that point of view as well. As ever, we have got some GA4 and advanced GA4 training going on as well. So if you want to drop into one of those sessions, targetinternet.com/masterclass, and those sessions are going on all the time. So we'd be very happy to see one of those. And we touch into a lot of this attribution modeling stuff as well. The key thing to this, to me, is you need various tests to get the right thing, but you can't just rely on Google for data and analytics. You need to look at some other sources of data as you're going through all these things as well. And don't just blindly trust your attribution. Look at your revenue figures and so on as well, and just say, okay, does this add up? Yes, it's attributing value to this, but in reality, how much is that moving the needle in terms of actual sales? And if you do that, you have a bit more of a sensible view. So I said I'm bitter. I'm not bitter. It's been a good learning curve, I would say, really. But you do need to be careful because otherwise you're wasting budget. And we cannot afford to do that.
Cross-network.
Exactly.
Arr.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast. As ever, targetinternet.com/podcast for all the links in the show notes. And we'd love to hear how you're getting on with these campaigns as well.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.